right, joining us here on Real Agriculture right now, we have Leon Osborne, a professor of atmospheric sciences at the University of North Dakota, based in Grand Forks. And Leon, there's lots of talk right now about El Nino and the possible impact that could have on our weather across North America in the coming months. What does this mean for the agricultural production regions in the northern U.S. and perhaps into Western Canada?
Well, certainly El Nino is the number one news story from a weather perspective, at least from a global perspective. But as we get further into the upper Midwest of the U.S. and southern and central Canada, we're also having to watch very closely what is known as the Arctic Oscillation. Some people like to refer to it as the polar vortex, because it does have a major impact on determining certainly what our winter conditions are going to be, and will largely dictate what we're going to see in the way of wintertime precipitation that obviously is important to us as we get into the spring planting.
So El Nino, though, does that mean warmer, a more moderate winter?
Well, if we ignore the impact of the Arctic Oscillation, then a strong El Nino generally would mean a warmer winter. From the standpoint of precipitation, it's really kind of a toss-up whether or not it's going to be wetter or drier. More often than not, maybe it's a little bit wetter than normal. But as I say, in our part of the country, it's only one of several factors. Most important would be the Arctic Oscillation.
Okay, and that term, the Arctic Oscillation, we've heard a lot about that in the last couple of years. Do you have any idea how strong that effect could be?
Well, at the present time, we're moving out of what's referred to as the negative phase of the Arctic Oscillation. Part of the challenge with the Arctic Oscillation is it has the ability of changing rapidly over a short time period. So it's hard to say, several months in advance what the Arctic Oscillation is actually going to be. But if we look at the trends and we look at the precursors that we often look at to be able to determine what kind of phase it's going to be, right now it looks like that the trend is going to be towards its negative phase, which means we're going to see a stronger airflow away from the Arctic, meaning that more excursions of colder air further towards the south. With that would mean that we'd see more of a contrast to what we're seeing with El Nino, but that does set up the situation where we may see, where those two contrasting air masses come in to play with one another. We could see a higher frequency of clipper storms, these fast-moving storms from the northwest, and those, if you get a number of those and you have good moisture, you may be picking up anywhere from anywhere from 6 to 10 centimeters of snow every time one of these systems goes through. So over the course of the winter, that could lead itself into heavier precipitation, but it would mean we'd also see some gaps. Rather than a long sustained cold outbreak, we're going to see a lot of fluctuation between cold and then back to warm.
Finally, then, over what time frame do you see this applying? Does this extend into next growing season?
Well, at the present time, we're not. From an El Nino standpoint, we're looking at the major part of the El Nino is going to be more over the winter months, and start to weaken as we get into this next spring. So the impact of El Nino will really be mostly over the next 5 to 6 months, and by the time we get into the next summer, we're probably not going to see El Nino as a big factor. The Arctic Oscillation, that's going to be with us throughout the winter and certainly into the spring. So, those two working either with one another or against one another is going to be the key for our weather.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.